Hello everyone and welcome back to Travel 911. So today we're going to dive right into the video because I do not want to make it a very long video. So we are going to be talking about delays and cancellations. Unfortunately, delays and cancellations can happen at any time and the airline cannot control. The issues that can occur is mechanical delay, air traffic control delays, or weather delays, which the airline cannot unfortunately predict any one of those prior to you going to the airport. Sometimes they can tell you in advance if they're expecting severe weather in that area, they can cancel or delay that flight before you get to the airport. Other times they cannot. Mechanical delays is not, again, something that they can predict to happen. Sometimes they can swap the aircraft. We're going to get deeper into that. So today we're going to talk about what causes delays, what your rights are, what you can get out of them. In the United States, the law actually does not require any airline to compensate in an event of a cancellation or delay. If it is canceled or delayed extensively, you can definitely get a refund if you're planning not to take that flight anymore, or if you're going with a different airline. You can get a refund for your ticket. However, when it comes to compensating, giving you a voucher or giving you some type of gift card or anything like that to compensate for your troubles, the law does not require any airline to do that. Only time the law requires any airline to compensate is if that airline bumped you off of that flight because it's oversold. They no longer have the seat that they sold you a month or several months prior. If that happens, then you definitely can get a refund. On top of that refund, you can get compensation for being bumped off of that flight. Now, if you're bumped in advance, the thing happened before is they'll say, okay, we need 30 people to give up their seats. The compensations are 200, 300, 400, or 500. Which one will you take? So first what they'll do is they will take the people that take the smallest number of compensation. So if you chose 200, then they will bump you off of that flight and give you that compensation. If they have 30 people take that lower amount, then they will take those 30 people before they go up to 300, 400, and so on and so forth. So that is one thing they do to minimize the out-of-pocket charges, out-of-pocket expenses that comes with bumping someone off of the flight. So they usually would like to do that in advance prior to waiting to you going to the airport. Because once you get to the airport, I mean, it can be, compensation can go up to like $1,000 or more. So that is something that they try to avoid. So you may receive a call prior to that you going to the airport saying, hey, we need some people to give up their seats. Are you willing to? Any United States law or requirement that the law has upon the airline, that only applies to flights that are going to, from, and within the United States. If you sometimes you fly overseas, that may not apply to that requirement that they do have to compensate you. So that's one thing to look at. A question that I get a lot: what happens if my flight gets canceled or delayed? So the options are, and these are based on what they will offer you first. So the airline will first offer you to rebook your flight to the next available flight with that same airline. So let's say if you're flying American Airlines will offer you their next available flight. Let's say if it's not until the following day or 2 days from there, then they will offer other airlines. Now, keep in mind, it has to be an airline they have an agreement with. So American Airlines cannot just out of the blue book you on a United Airlines flight if they do not have that agreement with them. So if they book that United Airlines without having the agreement, the other airline will just outright cancel that flight. And once you go to that desk to check in, they'll tell you you do not have a flight because they do not have any kind of agreement for American to rebook their passengers on United. And that goes with every airline. They have to have like an airline agreement for them to be able to do that. So most of the times I do get calls, your flight is delayed. Why? I see an XYZ flight online that's being sold. Why can't you put me on that flight? And it can cause frustration sometimes because yes, you do see the flight and I can't book you on it. It's because our airlines do not have that agreement, and unfortunately we can't do it. I've seen people say, it's been done before. Yes, I can go ahead and enforce it in there, but once you get to that other airline, you're not going to have a flight. You're just going to start from scratch, and you do not want to do that. So the person that you're talking to on the phone knows the best, and they've been doing this for so long. When they do tell you this is the best course of action to take when it comes to your flight is delayed or canceled, I would strongly go with that. And then once you get to your final destination, call the airline back and see what they can do for you. So the first thing they're going to do again is rebook you on their flights. If their flight is not available, then they're going to look at other airlines they have an agreement with. And when that does not work out, that's when they jump into, okay, so since we do not have anything that works for you, would you like a refund? So at that point, if the flight is canceled, the airline is required to refund your money, full money. The only thing that you do not get back is sometimes when you book with that airline and you book it online, they have partners where you can get a car rental or hotel stay or Airbnb. Keep in mind, once you purchase that, you're not paying the airline directly for that car rental. So when it comes to you canceling, that airline cannot cancel it because they don't have access to the car rental system to go in there and cancel that transaction and refund. Unfortunately, you just have to call them directly to see what they can do. Sometimes all they ask is proof that your flight was canceled, and then they'll go ahead and refund it. Other times it can be more difficult, but just keep in mind the airline cannot do anything about the car rental or the hotel stay. Even if you did book it on their website, it's just a third party partner that they have on their website that you can actually go ahead and book those. Now, also, if your flight gets delayed or canceled and the airline does offer you compensation, you want to, before you get off the phone, you want to ask them what the restrictions are with that compensation. So the restrictions sometimes could be you can only use it for that airline on their flights specifically. Other times it can be used for that airline and any partners that they have. And sometimes it's a gift card that you can not only buy airline tickets, but you can actually go to a store and purchase items or go online and shopping. It can be used wherever that branded card is used. So that's one thing you also want to ask. If they have an option to give you a gift card that's not specifically for that airline, that way you can go out and, buy clothes for yourself, use it to buy groceries, whatever you want. You don't want to be and you don't want them to specifically give you that card that you can only use with them, because there are some people that only fly once or twice a year. So that gift card, if you're only able to use it with them, you want to make sure it doesn't expire. If that's the case, if you can only use it with them, make sure it does not expire, so when you do travel again a year from now or 2 years from now, that you are able to use it and that's not money wasted. Okay, now one other key thing that I wanted to mention: if your flight is delayed or canceled, the airline is not required to put you up in a hotel. That's number one question that I get all the time. So let's say if your flight is delayed and you're at your originating airport, that's a definite no. Sometimes the airline will work with you and give you a hotel stay, like a hotel voucher. May not be the best hotel, but let's say if you're originating from point A and that's where your flight is delayed, you are able to go home and take the next flight if it's the following day or 2 days from there. So they're not going to give you a hotel stay just to stay on the grounds of the hotel of the airport and then just take the next flight out. That's your originating airport. Now, most people will say, but I am originating from here, but I don't live here. I had to drive X amount of hours to get here. Unfortunately, that's not something the airline is going to consider. So if it's your originating airport, you want to make sure that that's where you live. Or if you do not live there, make sure if that flight gets delayed, you have someone to come pick you up and take you back home, because the airline is not going to give you a hotel stay. One thing you can definitely try, if there is no way for anyone to pick you up and take you home, you can definitely go ahead and stay in a hotel. And once you complete your travel, call that airline's customer care line and see if they can reimburse you, if not full amount, half of what you came out of pocket for. Same thing with ground transportation. They will not cover that if it's your originating airport, because they're expecting someone can pick you up, or you have a car parked up there, or you can take a bus, whatever means you have by way of transportation to get back to home. There is a difference when it comes to, let's say, if you originated from point A and you have a connection point, so you're going from New York and you're connecting in Atlanta before you get to Hawaii, and you're in Atlanta, which is your connection point, you obviously cannot go back home unless that airline has a flight to fly you back in New York so you can get home until the following day. So in that instance, most airlines will work with you and give you like a hotel voucher. Like I said before, it may not be the best hotels out there, but it's somewhere where you can stay and not have to take a flight back and, lose a whole 2 days of vacation since you're already losing one, or work work-related travel. So that's one thing to also keep in mind when traveling. When you are at your connection point, always just speak to the airline agents and say, hey, there's no way for me to go back home and I'm not spending the night in the hotel. Some areas I know for sure, they do not have any kind of hotel accommodations, only because it's a very busy area of it's, let's say if it's a bigger hub, if it's a big airport there, and most airlines are delayed because it's weather or what have you, they're not going to have any kind of accommodations. So now that only applies when it comes to if it's a mechanical failure, something that the airline could have prevented. So if the airline, a bird flew in the wing and it's not working, or they need to refuel and it's taking longer than expected, or something broke on the airplane and they need to either replace it or wait for a mechanic, sometimes it can take hours for a mechanic to go from point A to come and fix that. It takes time for them to fly there, and then it takes extra time for them to fix it and then make sure everything is working before they go. So sometimes delay can be over 20 hours, which it's never happened to me, and I hope it doesn't happen to me, but I hear it a lot. It happens to a lot of people. Sometimes people cry over the phone, and you feel very bad, but unfortunately there's limited to what we can do. Now, if it's a weather delay, the airline will not, unfortunately, do anything. Sucks to say, but that's true. The airline cannot control the weather, which means if anything happens, they're not going to take any responsibility. You're not getting that hotel stay. You're not getting that meal voucher. You're not getting that ground transportation assistance. None of that. The only time you get that is if it's a mechanical delay, something that the airline could have avoided, but they didn't, or their plane is not good enough to fly. They will take responsibility sometimes and give you a hotel stay. By law, they're not required to, but I've seen so many people get that accommodation when it comes to a mechanical delay. Now, when I say weather delay, most people are like, I'm looking up in the sky. It's nice. It's so nice over here. There is no weather. Keep in mind, when you are flying from point A to point B, you're not only it's not zooming from point A to point B. You actually have to fly over different cities. So it may not have any weather where you're at, but where you have to go through to get to where you're going, it may be impacted by weather. So that's one thing to keep an eye on when it comes to that, because I get that a lot. I get cursed out a lot because, there's no weather. It's nice over here. Why are you telling me my flight is delayed? Because it's the weather conditions. You guys are just not trying to compensate me. You guys are just not trying to put me up in a hotel. Again, they're not required to compensate or put you in a hotel. So that's no reason for the airline to lie and say, hey, it's weather. It's maybe where you're going through to get to your final destination. That's where the weather is. And again, when you're down below, you can't see what's going on up there. So once they get all the way up there, it may be, something going on up there. Again, I don't know because I don't work for them. I only work for the airline, so I do not know all details. Weather doesn't always mean what the eye can see. It can be further down the line once you take off. Again, your safety is first, so you don't want that pilot to take off knowing that something can happen, God forbid. That's not, most airlines, they take that top priority, which is safety. And ultimately, even if the airline told that pilot to take off, it's up to that pilot, and most people don't know that. So even if the airline says it's okay for them to take off, if that pilot feels like it's not safe enough, that pilot feels like it's not safe enough for them to take off, they're not. So either the airline finds another pilot to do it, and if all the pilots are saying it's not safe, we're not going to go, that flight is going to get delayed, and it's not up to the airline at that point. That pilot is not going to take that risk to risk their lives and all of their passengers' lives as well. So sometimes your safety comes first, and that's one thing to look at. I always look at it that way. If they're saying it's delayed because it's weather, my safety comes first. I will sit there and wait as long as it takes. Another thing I wanted to talk about is if the flight is delayed or canceled, and let's say your bag, let's say you're at a connection point and you have to spend the night there or whatever, and you have to go to the store and buy whatever, a t-shirt, underwear, whatever you're missing that you need, toothbrush, they're not going to reimburse you for that. The only time you get reimbursed for that is if they've lost or damaged your bag and they're not able to get those items back to you. Hey guys, that's all I had for you guys today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do not forget to subscribe. Give it a thumbs up if you like this video. I will see you guys on my next video. I will do just that because I will not risk my safety. And um, before I let you go, one other thing I wanted to talk about is if the flight is delayed or canceled, and let's say your bag, let's say you're at a connection point and you have to spend the night there for or whatever, and you have to go to the store and buy whatever, you know, a T-shirt, underwear, whatever you're missing that you need, toothbrush, they're not going to reimburse you for that. The